So if you really just look at it, it's here we are, most people roaming around this world, have no idea where they came from, have no idea who they are, don't know where they're going, don't know what's going on, not really, and yet haven't quite directly come to terms with how painful that is. When you really come to terms with it, it's horrible. How can it not be? But we just haven't even come to the point where, as a collective, we face and recognize the existential reality of this. But there's still that underlying discomfort or disease. Almost everybody I've ever talked to, and I believe almost everybody, I could quote some other people who deal with this also, intrinsic in everybody is some sense of something is wrong here, something's wrong with me. How many times have you heard somebody say, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? So the question that's, the feeling is either something's wrong with me or something's wrong with the world. And many people are just like, oh, this world is so screwed up. And some people is, I'm so screwed up. And that's the same thing. It's the pain of this not knowing who we are, where we came from, or what we're doing. What is really going on here? So I believe that essential to that is we came from a higher frequency. We originated from pure spirit. There was a time when we were merged in spirit. The reality there would be there's no duality there. There's no polarity. There's oneness, and we know that oneness. We're merged in that oneness. There's never looking for love because it is always there all the time. Then when we transition into physical reality, that creates a shock in our system. It's like it's a shock to the spirit to come into physical reality. And that shock becomes foundational for our life. And then we develop all kinds of strategies. My strategy was to find my way back home from a very early age. That's what I wanted to do more than anything. I may have mentioned before, I thought I'd been kidnapped by the people that claimed to be my family. I thought they had kidnapped me from my reality and were trying to convince me I was one of them. That's literally what I thought when I was 3, 4 years old. And I determined to find my way back home. I thought it meant going back to another planet, another world. I don't know what it meant. I knew I didn't belong here. That kind of thing. So then on top of that fundamental pain of not knowing, we start to create a strategy of how to survive, how to cope with this fundamental shock. And there's parts of this that I refer to as survival codes. So every living form has survival codes. A goat has certain survival codes. A bullfrog, a snake, a rosebush, a tree, poison ivy plant, they all have survival codes, and that is an instinct that keeps them in existence, keeps them thriving and living. So our body also has survival codes. One of the survival codes in the body is if you touch something hot, you pull your hand back. You pull it back very quickly. You don't think, this thing is hot, I should pull my hand back. You pull your hand back and then you think, oh man, it's a good thing I pulled my hand back. That was really hot, I could have burned myself. So here's where it becomes, let's say the plot thickens. So in the meantime, we start to develop this conceptual matrix of identity. Now, some people may mean they use the word ego in the same way that I use conceptual matrix of identity. I don't particularly use the word ego because everybody has a different idea what it means. So I'm using this language just specifically and as directly as I can. But as the conceptual matrix of identity starts to crowd us into a smaller and smaller space, especially related to brain consciousness, which is relegated to a very small spectrum of all potential consciousness. So you've got the consciousness shrinking down to that 6 inches out of 100 miles. And you've got the conceptual identity starting to take shape. And that lack of safety, that lack of well-being, then sort of, it has an imperative that we find a way to cope, a way to feel safe, a way to survive the challenges. And how, and then the way that we particularly develop that starts to merge with the identity. So the identity starts to develop its own survival strategy. Now, what makes this difficult to deal with is the body knows how to deal. Like, you know, once when I was young, I was roaming around up on the hillside with my dog, and we had plants then we called chinquapin bushes. Probably none of you have ever heard of a chinquapin bush. But there was a chinquapin bush there, and the dog was jumping between me and the bush, and I didn't understand why, but the dog started barking. Next thing I knew, there's a rattlesnake making that sound. So my body goes immediately. I didn't know a rattlesnake. Never heard of a rattlesnake before. I was probably 6, 7, 8 years old. But immediately my body goes into shock and retreats, and then after a while my body acclimated. So my body knew what to do, and it knew how to calm down once I'm out of danger. But once your conceptual identity feels threatened, your body doesn't know what to do with that. Your body's like, what is going on here? So it affects your body and gets stored in your body as incomplete energy. And then that survival strategy becomes even more stubborn. So your survival strategy or survival codes is like a politician. It comes into your reality promising to help you feel safe. Now, what does a politician do once you elect him? The moment he comes into office, his number one priority is to keep himself in office. His number one priority is not helping you or anyone else. His number one priority is keeping himself in power. Hopefully there's a lot of politicians I'm wrong about. But for the most part, you understand what I'm talking about. So the survival strategy then, now this is something I've really given a lot of attention to. The survival code or survival strategy is made of survival energy. So it will do whatever it needs to keep itself in existence. A fundamental impulse of survival in India is worship as a form of God called Vishnu. Vishnu is that elemental reality or functioning of the divine, which is about sustaining whatever has come into existence. So there's the creator, the maintainer, and the destroyer. So we're dealing with divine energy, but it's unconscious. It's not awakened energy. Does this make sense to anybody?